Welcome to Revolution Against Evolution. I'm your host, Doug Sharp.
Your co-host, Rich Gear here, and I understand, audience, that Doug has got a project for us today. We're gonna talk about one of the animals we've talked about in the past. It's a very amazing creature. It's the Duckbill platypus. And Doug, what? I don't know. Do we want to get right into it, or did you want to go do some preliminaries?
Let me tell you what I have in mind here.
All right, sounds good.
I've been taking a project management class, and I've been learning all the different things you have to do in order to do a project. Now, usually what happens in a project, you just go and wing it.
I know that very well, yes, okay.
But we're learning that there's all sorts of different steps and things that you have to keep track of during the project. Sure. And so you have to talk about the triple constraints of scope, time, and cost. And that ends up being quality. If you get all of those three triple constraints right, that is what helps you to have a successful project. There's the integration of everything that has to take place first, so that you have to gather together everything that you're going to need to get the project done.
That's assuming that you actually know everything you're going to need to get the project done.
That's right, yeah. And then you have to figure out the people that you need to do the project, how you're going to communicate, what the risks are, what you have to go out and buy, and then figure out who's going to care about the project, the stakeholders, and then who's going to take personal responsibility for the whole thing.
Right.
And so those are the things I've been learning in my project management class, and I thought I'd integrate it into this.
You're going to integrate it into our show. All right, I do. And the project is what?
Well, we're going to create a duckbill platypus. And we're going to assign to our project engineers the task of putting together the duckbill platypus. And you're going to have the opportunity, Mr. Engineer, to go out and gather your materials for the duckbill platypus. You're welcome to use any living materials that you find to put it together, even though that sort of is cheating. Because if we're talking about evolution, you have to explain everything from the beginning. We're going to give them that.
We're going to give them that. We're already assuming intelligent design. So engineers, this is really not evolution in the one sense. We're just saying that we're going to see if even with intelligence, human intelligence, you could actually put something together like this. Okay, is that what you're saying?
That's right. Yeah. Okay. And so what we then have to figure out. Let's presume that we knew nothing about what the duckbill platypus was like at all, nothing to copy. And so, this is sort of like what our friendly creationist Dr. Domanian did when he invented the MRI. He didn't know if something would actually work to produce this imaging machine that he put together. But he actually got his ideas from just his brain of thinking through how something was being used in chemistry, and he appropriated it for imaging the body.
So, but was he a doctor? Was he a doctor?
He was a doctor.
Was he a medical doctor?
Medical doctor.
He was a medical doctor, but he's also he had an engineering.
Exactly right.
Bent to him. Okay, all right.
Yeah, and let's take a little bit about the history of the duckbill platypus. And this
That's
is
what I was going to get to. Do we want to give a few of the parameters we need to come up with? Okay, what's the first thing on the list?
Well, the first thing on the list is that you have to have some sort of food source that the duckbill platypus is going to eat. You can't have, and if you're going to build something like an automobile, for example, you have to have something to keep it dynamic, keep it
it has to have its fuel.
going.
You have to develop gasoline from petroleum products or kerosene or some fuel to make it work, whether it's biofuels or petrol fuels or something. At least at this point now. Okay.
So there have to be that sort of thing. You have to have a reproductive system. And in this case, the duckbill platypus lays eggs. And this is a strange anomaly. There's only one other a kind of creature that lays eggs, and that's the echidna. Now, there's actually 5 different species of echidnas, but there's only one species of duckbill platypus. And so they put the platypus, because it's totally different from the echidna, they put that in a different order than they do the...
So if we were playing Frankenstein monster, we might take an echidna, or maybe we take a bird.
Right.
They lay eggs. Or a reptile. They lay eggs. So,
right, and so it's a strange situation, and of course there's somebody who was trying to classify these back in the 1800s. They thought that the platypus was a joke.
That was fake. I was reading about the one first drawing from somebody named Hunt or something like that, and he submitted it, and they thought, the naturalists thought, this was late 1700s actually, 1788 or 1790. And they thought it was a fake animal. They didn't think it was real.
Right.
Some taxidermist had sewed a couple of different pieces of things together. Well, that's what you're asking these people to do, sort of only put.
Yeah, let's see if you can actually put it together and have a living creature that actually makes some sense. Now, I'm sort of last week we talked a little bit about fellow by the name of Garner Ted Armstrong.
Yes,
and
we did, yeah.
This was actually one of his favorite arguments that he would have on his radio program years ago about the duckbill platypus being such a problem for evolutionists, because you have to pull together all these different features. And
he's the true mosaic of an animal, isn't he? Though?
Right.
Okay, he's just pieces of all different kinds. It's almost like, see, for us as creationists, we think God has a sense of humor.
Right.
He knew you guys were going to come up with some classification system, and he said, "Oh, let's throw this in there, see what they do with that." It's kind of like, Doug, I think about that years ago when I used to work with woods a lot, and it always fascinates me. Hardwoods are generally classified with deciduous trees,
right,
like trees that lose their leaves in the winter, and softwoods are generally conifers and such. Interestingly, one of the softest woods is a hardwood called balsa wood.
Yeah, balsa
wood is a hardwood.
And basswood is...
Basswood is a hardwood. They lose their leaves, but they are soft. They're softer than most conifers. But anyway, I just feel like there's so many things like that in nature. I mean, like I said, they had the old thing years ago, or not years ago, just a little while ago. I mean, I don't even know if I used it on the show, Doug, but it's like, people ask me what's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing it isn't.
Yeah, right.
In other words, nobody eats a tomato like a fruit. Pretty well, I better say nobody. There's always somebody out there, but most people put tomatoes as in a vegetable salad, not a fruit salad.
Yeah, right.
Okay? So there are things like that in nature that don't quite fit. We come up with these classifications, but the platypus doesn't fit anything. I mean, even when they put it in the monotreme, they've had to make a new classification system. Yet a monotreme is a subdivision of a mammal, correct?
That's right. It's a mammal, but it lays eggs, and so it really doesn't fit anything that they have. Now, let's talk about the duckbill, for example.
I was going to get to that, so let's go for that.
And there's on the edge of the bill in front, there's sort of like some sensory mechanisms that's sort of unique to this creature that does some echolocation of some sort that
like a bat, right? It can actually locate. Does it locate its food by?
It finds worms, usually worms and small creatures like that that's what it feeds on.
Of course, that goes back to its fuel.
Right.
Engineer, you got to get the fuel. It's insects and shrimp
and you sort of think that the duckbill opened the bill like a duck, but actually the mouth of the duckbill is sort of back underneath. It's sort of like a shark.
Yeah, like a shark or like a manta ray. It's underneath it. I know. I was reading this article Doug got out this evening, and I never knew that. All these years I've talked about the platypus, I did not realize his mouth was not part of the duck, like a duckbill, like a regular thing, but it's not. It's its own. It's a sensory organ, right, Doug?
Right.
Okay.
And it has a tail that looks like a beaver's tail,
yeah,
only it's got fur on it.
Yeah.
And the shoulder girdle is reptilian in nature, and it has webbed feet in front. And the back feet are also webbed, but it has claws in the back, and then it has a sharp spur in the back that's venomous.
It's a stinger. Yeah.
Right,
It's a stinger.
and I guess that stinger can really set you back a little bit.
Well, I was reading about that in the article. It was talking about it. Did you get this out of Wikipedia, Doug?
Yeah, Wikipedia.
Wikipedia is a pretty handy little thing sometimes for quick notes. But yeah, Doug, it's not, the venom is not lethal to humans, I would say, by and large. I would say if you have a heart condition or something bad, it could kill you. But it's strong enough to kill a dog. But even a human that's in full health, it'll take you out for several weeks and even up to several months, and you will have an increased sensitivity to pain. Even after you heal up, I guess if you go like this, it would hurt you. Any kind of thing like that, be real sensitive. So you don't want to, and so it's the spurs on the back of his foot, right, Doug?
Right. Yeah.
So he has to kick back. So I guess you don't want to approach the platypus from behind. That would be a bad idea, right, Doug?
Right.
Although I saw some of these pictures in here, Doug, platypus, I don't know whether they're domesticatable, but they seem to be adaptable to being handled by humans. Humans, they show them to kids, and they don't seem to be threatened, and they don't threaten you either. They're not naturally aggressive animals, as I would think. But,
right.
Based on what I'm seeing in there.
Yeah, you just want to stay away from his hind legs, right?
Yeah.
But let's see what else is interesting about the. Its fur is waterproof.
Yeah.
And that's kind of neat. And I guess that for some time in the past, they were hunted for their pelts and for the fur.
I imagine they probably have a nice fur, but they're a little animal, and they're not. They're only found in Australia and Tasmania, and not even in all of Australia. Some places they used to be, but they either been hunted. They introduced the red fox in 1845. That's probably knocked down some of it. The natural predators are like the owls, the hawks, the eagles, some things like that. I don't know if dingoes would get them or not like that down there.
I imagine, yeah.
But anyway, and even they've some evidence or some supposition, I guess. I don't know whether other than evidence that the crocodiles pretty much taking them out in the Queensland area. I'm not sure the area where crocs are a little bit more prevalent. So you don't see them there. So you see them in some of the regions of Tasmania and some of the regions in Australia, but that's about it. Except for there's a Kangaroo Island, Doug, and they were reintroduced there. And so it's kind of, I don't know if you want to call it an artificial population, but it seems to have grown back because I think they must have been once there, but they're not there anymore. They're now, and they were gone, and now they're back again. But they were artificially introduced by humans. So anyway, kind of interesting. I really need to see if those animals could survive here in the United States somewhere.
Right.
You wonder where they would live, because we don't have a lot of, we have hawks and eagles and predators, but I'm saying that no more than the hostile condition down there. You wonder if they could survive. Yeah,
the place where they live right now is mostly the eastern coast of Australia, going all the way up to the northern part along the coast.
Right.
And another feature that it has, I didn't know this, is that it has an eye that has a double cone.
Yeah, what does that mean, Doug? A double coned eye. What does it mean? Is it like that
rods
like
and cones?
Is it like cones are for color, right? Yeah.
And so it's they say that the only eye that actually resembles it in nature is the eye of the hagfish. And that's sort of like a sea lamprey.
Sea lamprey. Oh man, sea lampreys are gross. Those things. I mean, you see the bottom, those round mouths. God,
raspy things.
They just seem like evil, man. Those things just seem nasty. But anyway, I digress. So it has an eye like that. Now, what does that enable it to do, Doug? Do they know?
I think they can only guess of what it might mean. It may give it a heightened sense of color.
Yeah, maybe.
And so it may have an advantage in that area. But the question isn't whether or not it has an advantage. If we believe that it was created by the Creator, it's because of the Creator's own pleasure. It's sort of like when God put this creature together, he used something from over here, he used something from
I
over
know.
here, over here,
Little sense of humor there.
and pulled together like a computer program different features from all different parts of things. Well, he said, oh, I think this will work here, and this will work here, and so he put it all together. And so here I'm now simulating the engineer playing God. And assembling the duckbill platypus, and the question is, you know, if you were going to organize a group of people to work on this project, and you're going to pay them, and you're going to say, well, you're going to have this amount of money to work with, how far would you get before you actually got something that made that would before you ran out of money first?
Yeah, right, okay.
Or if you were given all the time in the world, or you know, it's sort of like the moon project. Remember when Kennedy said, we're going to put the man on the moon by the end of the decade.
Yep.
And so what was the triple constraints on that? Well, the constraint was that was time. And so then what you would have to say is, well, what about the scope of the project, or the cost? Cost was no object. He was going to have it done
No matter what. Yeah.
no matter what. And so that was the type of thing that you're going to do with this project, is to, you're going to put all the time and the money into this as you can. Will you succeed? Yes or no? And I would say in this case, trying to pull together all these different features from different animals to put together a duckbill platypus, you would have a very difficult time in completing this project.
Of course, that begs the question, Doug. They couldn't even create a simple worm or
Right.
bacteria. They've not been able to do that, let alone a platypus. But we're just giving you the idea that you could actually put together something like a Frankenstein creature, you know, put
Right, yeah.
some electricity like you did with your amino acids, you know, and and it would
Right.
work. But it's an interesting and fascinating exercise in speculation to figure out how you would even think to put those things together. And they say the best you could actually do is create a dead thing, taxidermy together from different things.
Right, yeah.
But I hear you got an animal. It's got a bill that looks like a duck, although we found out it's not. It's different. You have
lays eggs,
lays
but
eggs like
suckles its young.
like a reptile or a bird, and
Suckles the young like a mammal.
like a
so-
mammal. Has fur like a mammal. But it has a stinger like, or what, I don't know, what would you call that? Like a snake? I
Well,
don't
like
know.
a snake, yeah.
Yeah, maybe, I guess, I'm trying to think of that. It has some reptilian characteristics in its shoulder girdle. Now, here's one thing we didn't talk about, and you mentioned this before the show started, Doug, was it has all kinds of XY chromosomes, or several.
Oh yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah,
is
this
that
might be
I
the
think there
audience
was
might-
like 3 or 4 sets of both X and Y chromosomes. You know,
What's
like
that all about?
we have only XX or XY,
Right.
depending on whether male or female. Well, this creature has a whole bunch of them, and the question is, what does he do with all this sex?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that, they haven't found this, I would assume this is not the case. Males they're not hermaphrodite, they can't, like frogs, turn from male to female. I would assume
Right.
that if they're either a male or a female. I was reading in the article that both male and female start out with a poison in the spur, but only the adult male holds on to produces the venom. So I would assume that they stay either male or female. They can't cross. They can't go back and forth like
Right.
frogs
And
do.
so here's the thing: is that there's all this code built up in the DNA of these creatures, and you
Is the echidna like that, Doug? By the way, do you know?
What's that?
Is the echidna have multiple XY? Do you know? Or
That one I don't know.
that was I just thought of that because they are sort of quote related. You know, they're both.
And I was going to talk about the echidna because it really isn't at all like the duckbill platypus. It's a
No.
spiny anteater. It's it's sort of like a porcupine in
Yeah,
nature.
it's much different looking, yeah.
And there's actually 5 different kinds, but there's only, but it doesn't have the features like the platypus does. It's just its own creature, you know.
Yeah, I guess that
Only
it's like when again, we talk about things, we come up with these classifications, and this isn't meant to indict or put down or disparage the classification system. I think it serves a purpose for the most part, but there are weird things that are tricky because, but they both lay eggs like a bird or a reptile, both the echidna and the platypus, and that's why they get put into the monotreme. And they both, does the echidna have fur, or is it spot? You said it's got spine?
It's spiny, yeah.
So it does not have any fur like a porcupine, because porcupines are spiny too.
Right.
But they're considered a mammal because they have fur underneath the spines. Do you know whether the echidna has fur on it in its body or not?
I think because of its classification, I would guess that that does, yes.
Yeah, I don't know that myself, but it's got a lot of, but it looks so different than the platypus. And again, it doesn't have the bill like the platypus. It doesn't have the stinger like the platypus, unless the quills or whatever the spines are venomous. I don't think. No. Platypus is the only. Platypus is considered it's the only venomous mammal.
Right.
Yeah, it's the only one. So it's different. And so they both lay eggs. They both perhaps have fur. But outside of that, there's really almost no relationship between the echidna and the platypus, is there?
Right. They're really two different creatures.
So
the question is, what would the pre-platypus look like?
Oh, geez. Okay, engineers, think about it. You know?
You not only now have to figure out, well, how to put it together, but put together something that was something that's becoming a platypus.
Because even now, after it's all put together, it looks like it's something becoming something else.
Right. Yeah.
It's a mosaic animal. It's a hodgepodge of a lot of different kinds of animals. It looks like, but it's fully functional. It works perfectly great in its environment. It does what it's supposed to do. And of course, as creationists, we think that's perfectly logical. That, you know, that the Lord made an animal that fits pretty well in its environment.
It's sort of like the tricycle and evolving into a wagon, you know. It's because we have an extra wheel now.
3 or 4 wheels, yeah.
And I remember a cartoon, a BC cartoon that said, well, triangle wheel is better than a square wheel because it eliminates one bump.
1 point, one bump. That was an experiment that didn't really last very long. Yeah. So
the question is, well, you get all your scientists together, all your medical doctors together, all your veterinarians together, and you figure out, well, what do we need to do to assemble this creature? And let's suppose, well, let's make a platypus that is mechanical. Let's even give them that. Let's say that
not a living thing.
Not a living thing, just mechanical, so that it resembles it and it runs around. Well, the only question there is, how do you get it to lay an egg and to reproduce?
Your experiment's going to lay an egg. I'll tell you that right now. It ain't going to go anywhere.
And it's going to have to deposit this little ball of whatever it is, you know. And inside of it is the pre-padded platypus.
I bet you some engineers could figure out some kind of robotic thing that would do those kinds of things. Of course, the egg would not reproduce another mechanical platypus. It would not make it.
Well, you would have to engineer it so that the platypus that's inside the egg would gather materials from the outside
to make it
and have it grow in size and length, and so that it would become another full-size platypus that then would lay another egg.
That's about the only advantage you have with platypus. It's not that big of an animal. What are they, about this big, Doug? They're not really very big.
Yeah, right.
Like a small dog, maybe. Kind of squatty, you know. So they're not very big. That's about the only advantage you have, because everything else, you seem to be, Doug, would be impossible. So yeah, okay. So The egg thing looks like pretty, okay, then you could develop a spur that was poisonous.
Right,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
you'd also have to make it so it swims in the water.
Yeah, okay.
And so you have to then have a radar detector to locate
Oh, and
the
the bill,
food.
you gotta make something that's able to locate not only food and, yeah, okay. Well, it's kind of Doug, it is kind of a fun little thought to think about in fact, the thing about it is, I guess it begs the question, what could you even possibly think that would be as creative as this one, Doug? I mean, although I gotta admit, Doug, mythology and human beings have been coming up with hybridization of animals for centuries. They've never seen one, never been able to
Right.
make one, but we can imagine a lot, Doug. And I think that's the whole thing about evolution, Doug. Remember when I was in a youth group years ago, and I remember one time because we're right now talking about sort of a little almost science fiction-y, Doug, you know? And I said to this young girl who was an evolutionist, she was probably 14 or whatever, and I just kind of musing to myself, I said, how come it is that, you know, evolution seems some of the best science fiction? She goes, well, that's because they can make up anything they want to.
Right.
And I went, that's why they make it up. And she, no, that's not what I mean. I said, that's exactly what you meant, and it's exactly true. With living systems, they don't work like your imagination. You can create centaurs and pegasuses and unicorns and things that are hybrid to horse and goats and lions and horses and humans, do all kinds of stuff. But in real life, Doug, you can't do that. You can imagine morphing one thing into another on a computer-generated screen, but you can't do it in living systems, Doug.
Right.
You can mosaic animals together, like put a piece of a duck in this, but you can't have that in a living system, Doug, that will actually do what it's supposed to. None of those things will work. Vain imaginations, they're fun, but they're science fiction fantasy, but real life does not allow you to do that, Doug. That's what I think
Right.
the creator, the amazing awesomeness of what he has done and what he continues to do, what he continues to astound us when we look into his living world. It's just an amazing thing, Doug.
And the other thing is that long periods of time really doesn't help you in this case.
No, it doesn't.
Because what
Why
you
not?
have to have is it actually has to be an instantaneous thing. It either works or
Yep,
it doesn't
it's
work.
the old saw.
If either it works the very first time or it's dead.
Yeah, unless everything works, nothing works.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that there's any possibility that if you started a project like this to build a duckbill platypus that you would ever succeed in doing
Remember,
it.
and you're starting with already pre-existing information.
Right.
Where-
And we're giving you all the materials, all the time and money and everything that you need to do it. Even over your entire lifetime, you can.
And we're taking
do
away
that.
the operative that evolution is called chance.
Right. Yeah.
We're not taking that chance, and still you can't do it.
Yeah, I think that's a problem with evolution is that you really, it's a mystery
Doug is an
theory.
atheist's fairy tale.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our time on revolution against evolution, and I challenge you to go out and create one of these things. Anything like it, we'd be impressed if you did. We'll see you next time on Revolution Against Evolution.